So today we're looking at two brand new mid-size electric SUVs that just hit the Indian market, the highly anticipated Toyota Ebella and the Maruti Suzuki Vitara. Now, at first glance, this just looks like a totally standard rivalry between two massive auto giants, right? But when we dig into some recent analysis from Autocar India, this absolutely bizarre paradox starts to emerge. We're going to unpack the specs, the features, and most importantly, the pricing of these two vehicles to figure out if a famous car badge is truly worth your hard-earned cash. So here's the core question I want you to ask yourself today. Would you actually pay a massive premium just for a badge? Like when you got to buy a car, are you paying for the engineering, the battery, the tech, or are you just paying for that little logo on the steering wheel and the prestige that kind of comes with it? Keep that question right at the back of your mind as we go through this explainer, because the answer might completely change how you look at your next vehicle purchase, especially when the actual machine underneath the paint job might be exactly the same. To really wrap our heads around the bizarre situation we're dealing with today, we have to talk about badge-engineered siblings. We aren't just talking about two cars that happen to share a few random parts or a chassis. No, we're talking about vehicles that are literally twins. They share the exact same platform, the exact same mechanics, and the exact same core design. They are differentiated almost entirely by the brand's logo slapped on the front and back and, a handful of incredibly minor cosmetic tweaks.
Let's start with their physical footprints. Honestly, it's almost comical how perfectly matched they are. The length for both, 4,275 millimeters. Width, exactly 1,800 millimeters. The height, the wheelbase, right down to the 185 millimeters of ground clearance, and the 306 liters of boot space, it's all identical. They take up the exact same amount of space on the road. Look, if you were to park the Toyota Ebella and the Maruti Vitara in your garage in the pitch dark, you literally would not be able to tell which one was which just by feeling them.
Okay, but the crucial point is, do they drive the same? Let's look under the hood. Actually, scratch that. Under the floorboards, at the very heart of these EVs. Once again, the numbers are carbon copies. Powering both the Ebella and the Vitara is the exact same 61 kilowatt-hour battery pack, paired to a front axle-mounted single motor. They both churn out 174 horsepower, they both deliver 193 newton-meters of torque. And perhaps the biggest thing for EV buyers, they both boast an identical ARAI claimed driving range of 543 kilometers. The acceleration, the power delivery, the distance you can travel on a single charge, it is a complete 100% mirror image.
And you know what? This sameness completely bleeds into the interior tech and safety features too. Usually this is where brands try to throw in a few extras to justify different price tiers, right? Not here. The safety kits are absolutely identical. Both give you 7 airbags, both feature Level 2 ADAS, they both have 360-degree cameras, all-wheel disc brakes, and the exact same driving modes, Eco, Normal, Sport, and even a dedicated snow mode. From the adaptive cruise control all the way down to the 10.1-inch infotainment screens and ventilated front seats, the feature list is basically just a copy-paste job.
Okay, so by now you're probably thinking, come on, there has to be something separating these two cars, right? Otherwise, they are literally the exact same product. Well, if you pull out a magnifying glass and look incredibly closely at the spec sheets, there are a few tiny, almost microscopic differences between the two. Let's look at the grand deviations separating these two electric SUVs. Ready? For audio, the Toyota Ebella gets a JBL sound system, while the Maruti Vitara gets an Infinity system. On the outside, the Maruti actually gets front fog lamps, while the Toyota, somehow, misses out on them entirely. Yep, no way around it, they just aren't there. And finally, when it comes to plugging in at home, the Maruti Vitara supports up to 7.4 kilowatts of AC charging speed, while Toyota offers a slightly slower 7.2 kilowatt charger. So yeah, a speaker brand swap, a missing set of fog lamps, and a measly 0.2 kilowatt difference in charging speed. That is the whole shebang. Those are the only tangible things separating the top spec trims of these vehicles.
Which brings us to the absolute bombshell of this explainer. Keep those tiny, basically insignificant differences in your head. Because for the privilege of having the Toyota logo on the steering wheel instead of the Suzuki logo, you are going to pay a staggering premium of 3.81 lakh rupees. Just let that sink in for a second. For mechanically identical vehicles with identical safety and identical range, the price gap is nearly 4 lakh rupees.
When you look at the stark reality of this pricing strategy, it's just wild. The top trim of the Maruti Vitara comes in at a very competitive 19.79 lakh, but the Toyota Ebella, it rockets all the way up to 23.6 lakh. Now, as the Autocar India analysis points out, a price gap between badge-engineered Maruti and Toyota models is completely normal. but we're usually talking about thousands of rupees, not hundreds of thousands. The working theory here is that Maruti might actually be taking a hit on their own profit margins just to move more units and establish dominance with the e-Vitara. And that basically leaves the Toyota variant looking incredibly, almost absurdly expensive by comparison.
But wait, what if you want to use those new battery rental schemes to lower the upfront cost? The EV market recently introduced Battery as a Service, or BOSS, which lets you buy the car without the battery cost, and then you just pay a rental fee per kilometer driven. While it definitely lowers the initial price tag, it doesn't fix the paradox. The Toyota Ebella's upfront base price is still nearly a lakh more expensive than the Maruti. And it gets worse, Toyota charges 4.99 rupees per kilometer for the battery rental, while Maruti only charges 4.39. So with the Toyota, you pay more on day one, and you pay more for every single kilometer you drive for the exact same battery pack.
The conclusion here is pretty much unavoidable, and Autocar India really doesn't mince words with their definitive verdict. Quote, "Between the two e-SUVs, it's the e-Vitara we'd recommend. The extra premium that the Ebella commands is not justified at all. Look, when the design is largely similar, the features are matched, and the battery pack is a literal clone, sheer value has to win out. And for sure, the e-Vitara is the undisputed winner in that category."
Which leaves us with one final provocative question for you to ponder. Is that Toyota badge really worth 3.81 lakh rupees of your hard-earned money? We've seen that the engineering is totally shared, the performance is identical, and if anything, the cheaper Maruti actually gives you front fog lamps and slightly faster home charging. It really forces us to evaluate what we actually value as consumers. Is it the prestige of a specific brand name or the objective reality of the machine sitting in our driveway? It's a fascinating study in brand psychology and auto pricing, that's for sure.